everyone, and welcome to Endpoint's 25th anniversary celebration podcast. With me, your host, Alison Richings, Wayfinding Design Director. And yes, you heard that right, 25 years of Endpoint. To mark this huge milestone, we thought it'd be great to sit down and talk all things Endpoint and wayfinding with the two people who started it all, Gideon Wilkinson and Paul Veness. Running a business for 25 years is no small feat, so we're going to dive into how it all began, how wayfinding has changed over the years, and maybe even what the future holds. Plus, we've got a couple of fun questions from the studio team to keep things interesting. So welcome, both of you. I'm really excited to chat today.
Thank you.
We're not.
Oh, no. I'm so glad that I'm locked in a room with you now.
It's so much easier where you're sitting.
You think?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that may be because we didn't share the questions with you to start with.
Mm-hmm.
Lovely off-the-cuff answers. That's all we need. Just think like you're on Parky.
Okay.
Okay, so let's begin. I'd like to begin with learning about the two of you. Can you tell me a bit more about your background? And, of course, my burning question is, how did you two meet?
God. The romance.
Given half the chance.
Well, I can answer where we met. We met at university, at Brunel University, that fine establishment. We're both studying industrial design.
I found a prospectus when I was looking for university courses.
Yeah.
The RCA one came in.
Nice.
And I saw the course on there, industrial design. I thought, that's for me. The problem was, I didn't really know what an undergraduate and a postgraduate was until I obviously looked into it. And then it's like, well, what's the next best? And it was either Loughborough or Brunel. And Brunel pimped the post.
Yeah.
But we weren't really in the same clique at university, were we?
No.
But we went on, they did an Erasmus exchange thing.
Yeah.
And the guy from Milan gave a little talk.
Do you want to just explain? You went on a Erasmus exchange to Milan.
Yeah, but before that, they introduced it at the university. They said, we've got these exchange programs. You can go to Hannover Fachhochschule.
Don't swear at me.
Absolutely. Milan, Politecnico, or a place in San Francisco.
There was one place in San Fran.
I can't remember the name of the college. And he presented to the whole year group of about 60 people, I think, wasn't it? And I remember thinking,
Milan it is.
And so
right.
When he then said, see me afterwards in the course college room, what have you, I remember I shot along there thinking, I want a place, as did he. But they could not give the places away. It was undersubscribed for the, 10, 11 spaces?
I don't think there was that many. But yeah,
So nobody wanted to go to Milan?
No, people
that's
did.
Not entirely true, but some people attended the meeting and then dropped out. And a lot of kids felt that, because it was a year kind of thing, wasn't it? You had your 2 terms. Brunel was always a sandwich course, thin sandwich it was called back then. So you did 2 terms and then your last term and the summer in industry.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of emphasis on work placements. And if you went on one of these Erasmus exchange, you kind of miss your 3rd year, which I was absolutely ecstatic about because I would have failed it miserably. And a lot of guys, more conscientious students, shall we say, were like, "Oh, can't miss out fluid dynamics." So I was quite happy to do that.
Mechatronics and electronics.
Yeah, oh my God.
Let's go to Milan instead. That's wicked.
I'm with you wholeheartedly.
So we basically forged our relationship, I would say, in Milan. We basically turned up. We went on a 24-hour train journey. You'd have loved it.
Oh, I love a train journey.
And with some other guys who were on the same exchange, Kalpesh and
Skinner.
Mike Skinner. Big shout out to them.
What, from the streets?
I think that was his secondary career. But yeah, so I travelled with them overground. It took 24 hours, and I won't go into details, but it was not a pleasant 24 hours. And we land in Milan station.
That station is insane.
It's an amazing station, but it was a very dreary January morning. I was expecting bright blue skies and sunshine, and beautiful lattes, but it was peeing down with rain. It was freezing cold. And it was like a half-hour walk to the Creefer office, which we were there dragging our suitcases, looking like bright tourists. And then we...
I can remember the woman's name.
Yeah.
The head of the accommodation, Angela Neary.
Angela Neary.
She goes, "Who are you?" I know nothing. She didn't know who we were.
We're with
She wasn't
Professor
expecting us at all.
Delacroix from Brunel. I don't know anything about it. So what? We've just come from England.
So what?
Have you got our rooms? What? There's no accommodation. So it was just a disaster. It was proper Italian. No offence. But we had to go and find the professor who was at a different place. And literally, you imagine the scene where you kind of walk into a lecture theatre with like the amphitheatre curved things, and you open the door and it creaks and everyone looks at you.
Yeah.
It was that kind of moment. And this guy's like, the guy's from Brunel, welcome. It's just like, yeah, we've got nowhere to stay. Is there anyone in the room have a room for a few days to help them out? And some young lady put us up in a spare flat for 3 days whilst we got our feet on the ground. Anyway, the story is Paul had a friend out there, or your cousin had connections, family connections.
Family connections.
Yeah.
Oh no, I didn't know you were connected.
Well, actually, I met her on my recent holiday in April, bizarrely, first time since Milan back in 92. But anyhow.
But essentially, he had nowhere to stay. I'd hitched up with these Norwegian people on a similar Norwegian?
Swedish, weren't they?
No, they were
Finnish.
Finnish. They were Finnish. Sauli Suomela and Ingrid and some
Irina and Margaret.
Yeah, Irina and Margaret. So I was in this beautiful flat with these guys. Luckily, I don't know I can't remember how it transpired. And I think we bumped into you or saw you in literally the bar around the back of this flat and he's kind of in there with all these Italian friends who were these family connections. And he's like, I'm like, where are you staying? He said, I said, you can come and stay with us. I'm thinking, 4 people, share the rent.
Yeah.
And but there wasn't a spare bed, so we found a mattress literally in the street, and
that was that.
And then you shared.
I had to move out when the landlady came.
Yeah, we had to hide his toothbrush when the landlady came. So that's where we kind of really met and got to know each other. And then obviously we went back to uni
and finished your industrial design degrees.
And then we kind of went back to our little cliques, but secretly had our own little clique.
Yeah.
And then when we left, you were living in London, weren't you? And I there was various parties and stuff, but I ended up coming back to London. And I think I borrowed an Apple Mac off you for something.
You did. I remember you turning up, didn't you, in that flat?
You were living in Kingston, weren't you?
Yeah, that's right.
And anyway, cut a not very long story, a little bit shorter, because I know we're pressed for time. We had such a good time in Italy. And what goes on tour stays on tour. I can't say too much, but it was the best time of our life. I think
absolutely.
We've always agreed it. Yeah. Anyone out there who gets the opportunity to not do their 3rd year industrial design and go to Milan and just have lots of fun, do it. It's brilliant. So we always vowed that we would go travelling together. We both started our career, both got jobs. Paul was designing a beautiful range of pet products.
Pond pumps and cat flaps. Don't knock it.
That sounds amazing.
I was designing personal care products.
Clipper catcher.
Also,
toenail clipper catcher was my first product to market.
Also sounds amazing.
Very closely with tool makers. Got to start somewhere. So that was a good grounding. We kind of committed to this idea of going travelling. So we eventually kind of saved enough money, bought a round the world ticket, and we're kind of on an aeroplane one afternoon. He was missing his girlfriend. We both left our girlfriends at the airport.
Same women now, actually.
Yeah, same.
There you go.
Definitely.
25 years.
Went off on our merry travels, which weren't quite as good as the Milan experience, has to be said. No. But we spent about 2 weeks travelling together. And then this was the day before smartphones.
Yeah.
I mean, literally in our backpacks were old films, film cameras.
Yeah.
Cassettes for Walkmans. I mean, now it was so much easier.
You could get email, couldn't you? But only just when you went to a coffee
we had to
shop.
go to people's rooms
in
flats who'd got an internet connection, and we'd set up Hotmail accounts. Mm-hmm. So, wherever we were, we tried to get onto email. That was a main form of communication. But also, we started off in India, by the way. We also phoned home now and again, and you had to go to these phone shops. And Paul went to a phone shop, phoned his girlfriend. He'd come out, he's ashen white. And oh my God, what's happened? So, something terrible's happened. He's like, oh, yeah, Debsy's pregnant.
Oh dear.
I remember it now. It was so funny. But it was obviously this trip we'd planned for many years and saved for many years.
Was now not.
Suddenly 2 weeks in, it's kind of like, plans. Will have to change.
Well, I went back for a week to the UK. I think
abandoned me in the middle of India. Abandoned me.
Went back for a week. Went, you all right, dear? Yes. I'm off back to India.
No, but then she came out, didn't she?
Delhi, and then she came out to Australia. Yeah.
So we kind of split up, and one thing and another. I think we probably only travelled
3 or 4 months
together. Yeah. We weren't together that long ago. No, travel.
No.
But it's still a brilliant experience.
Yeah.
And I'd been working for a company in London before we went. It was owned by a Kiwi guy, so he was a keen supporter of anyone travelling. And he always said, when you come back, come and see if we've got a job. So got back, knocked on his door, got my old job back, which I was brilliant at, and obviously Paul didn't have a job to go to, so I got him a job at my place. Put in a good word. Obviously, within a couple of months, he's earning more money than me. Slightly pissed me off.
Well,
and it was in that period after travelling and coming back. Paul obviously had a baby on the way. Got married probably within a year of getting back. I kind of settled with my partner. We bought a flat, and literally within a year of getting back from travel, we'd set up Endpoint as well. So we used
how did the idea come about for Endpoint?
Well, this company we work for, I won't mention names, but you probably see it on LinkedIn or something. But the company we work for, I was just like, wow, yeah, this is pretty good. Yeah, this is good fun. They grew a lot, and you got a lot of responsibility very quickly. So I was running a £2 million Volkswagen secondary sign project. They basically implemented brands in a big way, and we'd worked on British Airways rollouts, Anderson Consulting, pretty big brands, and they grew very quickly. Like I said, you got loads of responsibility. Exercised my industrial design training. There's a lot of 3D design. But we used to go. There was a big pub culture. We used to go to the pub and play pool and drink copious amounts of pints in like an hour. I don't know.
Lunchtime.
Lunchtime drinking.
And we kind of hatched a plan to say, well, we could probably do what we're doing for ourselves.
Yeah.
And I was kind of unemployable.
You do surprise me.
There were a couple of instances which we won't mention.
I did struggle with authority. I think and my family was my granddad was quite entrepreneurial, and it's like, let's do our own thing.
Yeah,
that'll be good. If we're doing all this work now, it can't be that hard. It's kind of that naivety, and I think if we'd have stayed there probably another 3 years, you have kids and responsibility, and it's kind of like,
and then you can't do it.
We don't want to do it. So the stars aligned, and we went to the bank in Aldgate High Street and set up a bank account and set up a company, which is
easy
really
those
easy.
Days. I'm not quite so.
I think it's easy now. I mean, people shouldn't be afraid of it. It's pretty straightforward thing, and our naivety and youthful exuberance pushed us on.
We had no overheads. That's the thing,
Yeah.
other than what we needed to take home. So it's quite, we needed, what did we say, 1,800.
We still both had mortgages,
yeah.
But it was like we have to earn 1,800 quid a month.
Yeah.
So whatever we do, we need to earn 1,800 quid each
to have that.
So
in
we
the
had
bank.
small projects. I did a bit of work at freelancing for, was it Major Players or something like that? Ended up at.
No, you were at Newland Sorrel, weren't you?
Yeah. So just,
Well, I mean, before we get to the work, I jumped ship. There was a friend, stroke competitor now, Ian Wybrow Consulting. He used to freelance at the place we used to work at, and he used to give us kind of weekend and sort of evening work to top up our wages and stuff. And I remember him saying to me, "It's like, if you ever want to leave, he said, I can give you 3 months' work guaranteed." And my twisted man logic was like, "Well, I'm only on a month's notice with this permanent job that I've had for years, and this guy's offering me 3 months." So I was like, "Oh, that'll
work."
Yeah, that works. So I decided, it's like, okay, there's an opportunity to leave now, and Paul obviously stayed on for a bit longer, and I eventually had to twist his arm, get him to jump ship. But I think it was only like 3 months, and it was a summer, I recall.
Yes. Yeah.
And we got a little, we hired some desk space.
Yeah. So what was that like? Day one in the Endpoint office.
Well, we made our desks, though, didn't we?
Yeah.
So
day one was making the desks.
Yeah. So Vincent Seymour Designs, this guy was looking to retire. He had a 2-room flat, didn't he, in Soho, pretty much above the John Snow pub. So I don't know how we found the space, but he had the
Design Week,
the old printed
I
magazine.
love
we
Design
have 2
Week.
desk spaces.
So he had the front office, we had the back, but there was no desks in there, was there? So I think I went to B&Q, measured it up, went to B&Q, cut the desks out to the shape we wanted, which were quite deep ones, because in those days you had the computer screens with the big old CRTs and stuff. Hired a van, drove it up there, didn't we? Then we fitted it out, put our paper roll fax machine in the corner, 2 computers, and sat there with not a lot to do.
No, there wasn't a lot to do. I mean, I actually, before we got that desk space, I jumped ship to go and, this guy Ian was offering 3 months' work of full-time work. So he had a little studio in Bromley near where I lived. So I used to go there. But literally, the plan was always to do our own thing. We'd come up with a name. The company existed. But I remember being in my hallway of our little flat, which we'd bought. So we bought a flat. We set the company up, and I think my partner got pregnant that year as well. So when I handed my notice in, my partner was like heavily pregnant. And I remember my mum going, "What the hell are you doing? What the hell are you doing? You leaving your job? You've got a mortgage and a baby on the way. Are you mental?" So I'd be fine. And we bought one of them blue jelly G3 Max.
Yeah.
And it was Mac Warehouse used to do a scheme, didn't they? Where it was literally put down £1. I remember getting the screen and everything and the computer, and I think we got a printer, put down £1, pay for it in a year. And by my man maths, it's like, I'm sure I've paid for that. Yeah, we'll earn enough money to pay for that in a year. So that was my first experience of Endpoint. And then eventually Paul left and we got that little place in Soho where we built the desks.
Brilliant.
It didn't seem any risky or anything. It just felt
just like you just got to earn 1,800 quid a month. That's it.
Straightforward,
easy.
Yeah.
And there is a kind of naivety.
Yes,
I think when you're that young, and maybe it was it was 1999, 25 years.
Yep.
So late 90s, which were much more kind of optimistic.
Oh, the happy days of the 1990s.
Yeah. And it all seemed kind of like what could possibly go wrong. Never look back.
So in light of that, What have been some of the biggest challenges you faced in those early years? And how did you overcome them?
You've met him 25 years.
He might say the same. He might say the same.
There's lots of small challenges. I don't think it's never felt like there's been some insurmountable mountain challenge that's gonna ruin you, and you're on the edge of sanity or livelihood. I don't think we've ever had a challenge like that. I think it's lots of little challenges, day-to-day challenges.
Yeah, and there's been changes on the way. Technology's come on such a long way from the fax machine and just a dial-up internet through to where we are now. That's played a big part, hasn't it?
Definitely.
You create your own challenges. We were lucky or whatever you call it, but we had some early success in the business. We back then were doing more of we're focusing on brand, and we actually did our first merger. I mean, looking back, it's crazy. We did our merger with this guy Ian, who he'd been in the business years. Nice guy, lots of connections, and I think he wanted to grow and want some youthful exuberance to support him, and we did a deal with him, and with that deal came a relationship with John Lewis, which was kind of one of our first big projects. I mean,
probably the biggest single PO we've ever had.
Yeah,
that one.
Yeah, purchase
that one time.
So we went from
£72,000 turnover in the first year, I think, to a fairly chunky one. Sort of
about £2 million.
And then we had a knock on the door from the HMRC, because obviously it looks slightly odd that you've gone from there to there.
And what with your family connections in Italy.
Yeah. So, but there was obviously nothing to hide, so it was fine. But
then we, one reason or another, we split up with Ian. It's a very early day, it's probably year 3 or 4 in our existence. So we'd weirdly merged with a company or bought a company, and then had to do a whole.
I think the difference there was Ian's a bit older than us, whereas we're same age, same number of kids, so you've got the same issues and challenges in your life which influence work, even if you don't want them to, sort of thing. They do directly influence it. So the fact that we were pretty much similar in that respect, whereas Ian, I don't know how much older he is, but he's
ancient.
Yeah.
We're all still, at the end of the day, we're actually all still friends.
Yeah.
I see him regularly. He's a really good friend. So, these things come and go, and you look back and you think, oh, that must have been really stressful. At the time, it's kind of like, oh, I just got to sort this out. We've got to get on with that.
Yeah.
And I think it was around that period where we had that John Lewis projects and some other projects. We had that C2C. Yeah. Like massive growth. And then Ian left, and there was I think we halved in size the next year. It's like, oh shit, we got this office. We'd moved office by then. We weren't in Soho with our 2 handmade desks.
And that was all down to him, because he said to the guy, do you realise how much you're charging us? Not a lot. You can get double that if you've rented the whole place out. So, of course, he did.
And that was it.
But it was fine. He felt guilty, actually. He then found us a place in Margaret Street, wasn't it?
Yeah, but by the end of that year, there was probably 6 of us, so we'd have never fitted in there anyway. So he actually, he found us. Basically, I was having a cigarette one afternoon and said, you get much more money selling this as a residential flat than 3 guys hiring some desk space. And he went and did his research and found out I was correct.
Got to be right about something.
So he found us a place in Margaret Street, and we stayed there for, I don't know, a couple of years, a year. And that was like John Lewis, and we started employing people, which is a challenge.
No, not with employees like me.
That is a big challenge. I mean, it's a new challenge, and it's something you have to learn to deal with. And we were quite young. We hadn't really been in managerial positions. I hadn't led a team. Paul hadn't led a team really. So they're the sort of things you have to kind of learn on the job. And I'm sure lots of mistakes made. In fact, I know lots of mistakes made. But you get people together. try and get them pointed in the right direction. On projects that's kind of quite easy because you got to get this stuff done. But we were suddenly employing people, and we got to a point where we outgrew Margaret Street. It's like, right, we've got to go and find a proper office, and that's when we moved to SE1, this part of the world.
Yeah.
And signed a lease that was expensive. It's that's for me when you kind of feel like, well, we got, I don't know how many people we had then, 12, 15 people. You signed up a lease, and you suddenly properly VAT registered, signing big checks. It's like, this is fairly serious now. And then it all went to rat shit. No, cut that out.
So, can you think of any significant projects or milestones during the last 25 years?
Well, that John Lewis was a big one.
Yeah,
because obviously that
clearly
sort of kick-started stuff.
Yeah.
We had that wagon C2C railway, similar, just followed after that, so that was good. Barclays was quite a big, significant.
Yeah.
London, but then ended up being a sort of multinational rollout when we were doing the more implementation side of stuff. And then as we sort of migrated to the wayfinding side, I suppose Harrods is one of the big ones, wasn't it? The strategic part there.
But that it was very much focused on those rollout type projects for probably a good 10 years. That was our main business. But we're industrial designers, and we found ourselves working with a lot of really good kind of graphic designers. I don't exactly know how it worked. I mean, we never really did marketing or anything back in the day, but we'd find ourselves, working with some really good graphic design people, Cartilage Ravine, North, Pentagram. We found ourselves working with, basically supporting them in like technical design. So when they were doing signage projects, they didn't necessarily have kind of those internal skills to specify products and understand material options. And we were like this clever sign company, just helping them develop signage. So that was part of the business. Most of those, they were doing smaller wayfinding projects. So it's kind of like, they're quite interesting projects. They're shorter, they're usually not quite as long in length as there's a real design aspect. But so we were doing that. We were doing project management, where we're managing these pretty serious rollouts, 700 Santander outlets. I don't know how many Barclays Bank.
220.
But all over the world.
Internationally, South America, Asia.
We did it into shopping centres, which was, less sites but massive and tricky. So
Tether, another big one.
Yeah. So kind of that was our business, and we ended up in, kind of the market matured in that brand implementation area, and suddenly there was some pretty big players doing that sort of thing, because they were big money projects. And we joined a network which was fun. We ended up being in this network with some guys from Australia and Holland and Taiwan and Canada, and we used to meet every 6 months and discuss matters of the day and all sorts of. So that it was actually quite a fun time, but you could kind of tell, unless we really invested in that type of business and probably got gobbled up or created our own network of international companies, it would be very difficult to compete, even with the experience we've got. And also for me personally, it didn't feel very like much of a creative outlet. You do design products, but the big challenges and the things that kept you awake at night were logistical. Is that stuff going to be there on time? Is that sign fitter going to do that on time? And it was, for me personally, it wasn't hugely rewarding, especially I'd been doing it 7 years before we set up Endpoint. So I was quite drawn to those smaller, higher frequency wayfinding projects. And really that's possibly our biggest challenge we've had, is transitioning from a company that was very much about brand and signage and the implementation logistics of signage to a full-on, fully fledged wayfinding, not just any wayfinding, but brilliant wayfinding company.
Some might even say the best, potentially. Wow. So what is the secret to a successful business partnership? How do you balance each other's strengths? And do you ever disagree?
Who wrote these questions?
I might have.
We disagree very agreeably.
You disagree very agreeably?
No, I think it's like any relationship. I mean, I often say that we're kind of more contractually bound than we are with our wives. So you've got to. I think we understand each other over probably the 30 odd years we've known each other. Yeah.
We've got strengths, obviously, but then we understand what those are, I suppose.
Yeah.
I think if you look at the friends we know mutually, and who've probably worked with us in the past, they'll all say we've got very much complementary skills.
Yeah.
So we don't overlap much.
But enough.
I was going to say.
Well, I'm brilliant at everything, obviously. No, I think that's true. We have got very complementary skills. Paul's a lot more kind of, what we say, analytical, detail orientated. He's our legal counsel, our operations, IT, all that funky stuff. A lot of the stuff that doesn't involve people or communicating. And I've always been.
Oh no! Hang on a minute. What would you say about Gideon? As he's just explained exactly what your strengths are.
He's more relationships, marketing. He's more front of house. I'm more back of house.
Yeah. And it's always been like that. It's not been arranged or ordained that way, or we had some intent that it would work that way. It's just the character and nature of us. We're kind of lucky.
And I think that works well on these bigger projects as well, because they want, the two sides.
Yeah, true. Very true.
So we've learnt to communicate in very short sentences. Very few. No, there is all joking aside, if there ever is a crisis, I mean, we went through COVID a few years ago. Yeah. I mean, for any business owner that employs people in any industry, that was, I think you class that as a crisis.
Yeah.
It's never happened before.
No.
One day you're hearing about this bug in China, and the next day we're wrapping up computers and sending people off in Ubers and closing the door and not wondering when we'd see each other again. It was a bit of a crisis. But whenever there is any type of crisis, being a small one or big one, whatever our relationship status is, when there's a crisis, it's very well oiled. We're very much on the same page, and I think there's just like this weird understanding we have.
Yeah,
that's the nicest thing I'm going to say about it. No, it is. I mean, it's testament we're still here, and we're still just about together.
Oh,
we
still together. Yeah, I was going to say that.
But convincing him to drop implementation, just do wayfinding.
It took a while, I admit.
Was challenging.
Yeah.
It was challenging.
Yeah.
Over the years, you've expanded the business into other regions.
Mm-hmm.
So why Dubai and Singapore? And what were the challenges and opportunities of that?
Well, Dubai started off with a project, didn't it? With Lloyd Northover, wasn't it? DIFC, Dubai International Financial Centre. So that started out as a small project in theory, ended up being several years long, didn't it? And then we had someone based out there. Then on the back of that, it's like, well, they've got money to spend over there. They've got ambitions. They're going to build things. So obviously wayfinding, sign design, that goes along with construction booms.
Yeah.
It's just opportunistic.
Yeah.
It's not planned. It's just how these things came about.
Yep.
You know, picture a project. That sounds a good idea.
Yep.
Send some people out there,
And get on
find
with it.
accommodation.
There's been some highs, and it's difficult working in a country when you're not in the region.
Absolutely.
You know, setting up bank accounts, businesses, insurances, cash flow is a big problem, or was.
Yeah.
You never have a bad debt in the Middle East, but they might delay paying you.
Yeah.
And
For 3 years.
cash,
Yes.
cash is the biggest lifeline of the company.
Of a business,
liquidity. You know, you have to pay your staff and everything else. So that's a key thing.
Yeah.
Which culturally, because one got to understand these things.
Definitely.
But some amazing projects and opportunities out there, then and now. You know, they've got some of the biggest ambition, which is great.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, Dubai was our first foray abroad. And as Paul said, it kind of opened our eyes to that on the back of a project at the DIFC, which is the financial centre. And kind of, you network, you meet people. And again, kind of stars align. We didn't incorporate when we had that first project. It took a couple, I think we'd been working out there from the UK for a little while. And then some of the guys from Lloyd Northover, after the project, decided to stay there. They liked it and saw the opportunity, and they ended up getting employed locally by other branding agencies. And, there's lots of wayfinding projects, and they couldn't keep employing our technical designers to live there. It's very expensive. So I remember a lady named Sylvia saying, "Oh, do you know anybody who we can employ direct?" I give her a few names, ex-colleague from the first place I worked. And then fast forward 2 years, we're having dinner together out there, and she's like, "Oh, I've been poached by a developer, one of the big local developers, to head up their wayfinding team." My friend who was working for her, he moved out there with his wife and stuff. He's like, "Well, if you're going, I'm not hanging around." And I piped up, "Well, if you're going to Emar and you like working with him and you don't want to carry on work, why don't we just set up an endpoint and you can kind of give us some work?" And she's like, "Oh, if you do that, I'll definitely push work your way." And that was kind of the start of Endpoint in Dubai, really, where we incorporated, we employed a guy, and literally within, I mean, it was crazy. Looking back, it's the height of the bubble, pre-2008. It was just mental. I think and it was always going to be very much about wayfinding, because in that region, a brand rollout is like, the biggest network of banks has 20 branches. So it's kind of, that was never a proposition out there, even though we ended up rolling out 3 of the biggest bank brands over there, telecoms things in Qatar and all sorts. So we did do implementation over there. But we set up, I think we officially set up in terms of getting a trade license in 2008. Great timing.
6, I think. I thought.
We were working out there in 2006, but we actually set up in 2008 because in Feb, 2007, because in Feb 2008, I think, was the whole Lehman's.
Mm-hmm.
So in 6 months we'd been going, I mean, we couldn't find enough people. The proposals were like, value-wise, were in the millions. It's like, oh my God, we've got loads of work. And it's, it was a massive bubble looking back, and one day the bubble burst. Yeah. And we literally I had to go over. That's probably the toughest thing I've ever had to do, is literally go over and make everyone redundant, close the office. But we kept the manager on to kind of collect debts and what have you. And literally within 3 months, again, super kind of lucky, we won a massive wayfinding project in Abu Dhabi for Masdar City. It's like still one of the fee-wise, the biggest wayfinding projects we've ever done. And we won a bank rollout. So the whole of Endpoint Dubai was run out of a little Rubbermaid outdoor cupboard, a guy's spare bedroom. So yeah, we were, that kind of hurt us a little bit, and it kind of maybe dented our confidence a little bit. Certainly did mine. And it took then quite a while to kind of grow. And there was a point, I think 2014, where we're like, we either give it another shot, get someone in to run it properly, or we just wind it up. And we found, again, that network I talked about, the Dutch guys. Made a friend with a guy named Peter Klicker, who has been our guy in Dubai now for over 10 years, hasn't he? And he's kind of just got on with it and done very well. A lot on obviously I don't want to praise him too much, but mainly based on the back of the enormous amount of work out there. No, not really. That's right. But it's funny how these things happen. The more you put yourself out there, the more people you meet, the more networks you're part of, the more people you're going to meet, the more opportunities are going to come up. And I think that's kind of how it is. Now Dubai is our biggest studio, employs the most people. It's doing the best figures. So it's took a while. And in that time, we actually opened a Qatar office. Yeah, I was there in Qatar the night they got announced the World Cup, and it was like the whole place. Qatar's kind of quite sleepy compared with Dubai. The place erupted. I've never seen anything like it. I had a friend in architectural practice who was out there, and he's like, it's going to just go mad now. Hotels, transport infrastructure, stadiums, it's going to be all guns blazing. Get yourself out here. So we actually set up, and that was a funny story. We had to, it's quite, the infrastructure is a bit more antiquated, and we had to set up a bank account and meet a local sponsor who has to kind of own half your business. It was all very odd. But to set up the bank account, you literally had to deposit £25,000 worth of cash. And I'm like, can we not just transfer the money?
So we went into the bank with a wad of money.
We don't have it. We had to phone the guy in Dubai. Can you go to the bank account, take out this amount of money and bring it over in a bag?
Poor Matt.
And he's like, am I going to get arrested? I'm like, I'm sure it's fine. And just like some mad drug deal in the bank. He just opens this bag, it's full of cash, and guy slips it under his table, gives us a receipt, and that's us with a bank account. It was some bizarre moments. Again, we had a massive project out there, didn't we, for their equivalent of the of their local health authority, Hamad HMC. At one point we had 6 guys in their communications department living out there, working in-house with their comms team, churning out all sorts of stuff. All sorts of things, isn't it? None of it to do with wayfinding.
First thing I did when I came to Endpoint.
Was it?
Yeah, I did all those forms. Remember? God, yeah. First thing I did. Just saying. Obviously, that was the best.
That was the highlight, was it?
Well, I mean, clearly, employing me was the highlight you were going to come up with, right?
As listeners can probably tell, we kind of could probably be accused of not having a very focused vision for the company. You need 6 people in your comms department, no problem, we can do that. You need to roll out your 20 odd banks.
But I guess that's an entrepreneurial spirit, and you're aware of the risks that you take, and it has paid off. I mean, it's a good thing, I guess.
Well, yes, but I think you learn, and there was a point around that period, which probably, I don't know, 10 years ago, probably 10 years ago, where you just think, what are we actually doing? It's quite chaotic. Are the people in the team being nourished? Are we employing the right people? Are we just randomly doing the jobs that drop in our lap and trying to do the best with them? Or do we have a very clear vision of what we want? Do we have a clear vision of what we want to achieve? And we didn't. So we decided to sort that out.
Yes.
At some point.
Yes, I remember that very well. I wanted to ask about pinch me experiences.
Oh, gosh.
Have you got any moments where you met someone pretty remarkable? They don't have to be famous, but just remarkable. Or just a memorable place that you wouldn't have gone to if it hadn't have been for doing what we do?
I've been all over the place in terms of places in the world.
Yeah.
Top of the Barclays building in New York, going behind the big blue. If you look at it on Google Earth or what have you, it's top of the tower is all blue.
Yeah.
Going up behind there just to check out what that was.
Yeah.
Similarly, the Barclays Tower in London, before we replaced the signage on there, was built into the glass cladding. So going behind that, it's about that wide. Shuffling through there, putting your finger through, and it's straight out to the fresh air.
Oh.
It was about 2 foot.
But and then with Whitbread and Premier Inn, going out to India to look at the first budget hotel out there, their mock-up rooms and so forth.
Yeah.
Through to all sorts of places. Mauritius for a hotel there. An event there.
Yeah.
All around the world, haven't we?
Yeah.
Which is great.
That's
definitely
really
got some air miles.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, so, seriously, we've done work all over the world, literally.
It's great, the variety, and then you see how different things work and the challenges that they might have in different areas.
Definitely.
The guys in Mauritius struggle with materials and so forth because they are middle of the Indian Ocean.
Yeah.
Whereas
they're in
other
the middle
places
of
it's not the same challenges. They've got issues with temperature and those sorts of things. So it affects the solutions that you might design.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been numerous memorable so numerous. I'm struggling. No, there's been numerous memorable occasions. Yeah, for me, I know it sounds really pithy, but I think I'm always convinced that the best is yet to come. I think as reputation grows, as we develop as a business, we're getting more and more opportunities, and some stadium stuff, World Cup stuff, tall buildings, projects that we can't even talk about. There's it's almost it's quite amazing, really, that we're given the opportunity to work on these things.
And thinking about wayfinding and that thing of looking ahead, have you got any predictions for the future of wayfinding in the next 25 years?
No, I mean,
the robots will do it for us.
Well, I mean, we've kind of lived already through a technical revolution. I was going to lunch today, the traffic was a nightmare, and it's like, I'm going to jump out, I'll go run, and it's like, no, I'll get a Lime bike, so suddenly I can purchase an electric bike. Then I'm on my map. How do I get to where I want to go? On my telephone. Even 10 years ago, that would have been 10 times harder to do. I'd have been carrying around an A to Z.
You'd have left earlier.
Well, I just stayed in the cab, I think.
You'd have pre-planned your visit better.
You would exactly. You would have pre-planned better, and you would have left earlier.
No, I think that's totally unlikely.
We are talking about you.
Cab,
Paul and I would have left
exactly
the day before.
Yes, we'd have left
because we have a thing of having to be on time.
Yeah. But I think technology-wise, obviously, we're probably going to live through another technological revolution with AI and the way that's developing, and will that have an impact on our business? I think for me personally, it already is. I'm probably in ChatGTP 3 times a week trying to write something, which I'm terrible at.
But the baseline's the same, isn't it, in terms of better experience, ease of getting around, Technology enables certain things.
Yeah, it's just another delivery system.
Make it easier, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You know, like you say, the ability to call an Uber, different ways of getting there.
Yeah.
All helps, and the phones and the apps, you know, the ease of getting through into a stadium and out again, it's great.
Yeah.
The next level, who knows?
Yeah.
You know, you wouldn't need a physical phone, would you? It's going to be more sort of, I don't know. It could be all sorts of things. It could be
more wearable.
I think we've seen already. You know, that idea of, especially post-pandemic, where a lot's changed, workplace, high street, and I think that with the screen technology, phone technology, social media, all that sort of stuff, there's a lot more value in physical experiences.
True.
So in some ways, I think our work becomes even more important, because it don't really matter if you get lost in the metaverse. You just reset. But
true,
if you do it in a real place, it gets frustrating. So, the idea of joy, legibility, fostering community, all those good things that our work helps to do, I think, remains.
So what do you think the future for Endpoint is?
Well, we've got to celebrate our 25th anniversary, which will be fun. We're taking everybody to Dubai, and we're going to have a good time there. And then I think we do have to kind of, I think it's time that we kind of reset again, in a way, and revisit that vision. I think we've ticked a lot of the boxes. We've achieved a lot that we set out to achieve intentionally quite a few years ago now. I think we're always looking around and thinking, oh, they do this, they do that, they're better at this, they're better at that. And I think now it's more like, well, what's our next step to greatness? How do we get to the point where other people are looking around at us and going, oh, they're really good, they're brilliant. How do we emulate that? How do we copy that? How do we achieve that? So it's trying to be leaders, more innovative. I think that's and looking at those, there are key areas: sustainability, technology, the very psychology of being lost, or how you feel within the built environment. There's all these types of key areas that I think there's lots of opportunity to learn and exploit.
Yep.
I think we're only scratching the surface.
Very quickly, we asked the studio for some fun questions. I'm going to give you like a minute to answer each of these. I don't want you to think about it too deeply, just your kind of immediate response. So the first question is, if you could personally work on any dream project, what would it be?
A submarine.
Oh, that's a good one. Not that you'd catch me on a submarine.
No.
I mean, if it was in dry dock, that's fine, but not underwater. Submarine would be amazing. Gideon, any dream projects you fancy doing?
I think a lot. We've worked in so many. It's going to sound really pithy again. We've worked in so many sectors, on so many, pretty amazing projects. I don't know, because we've not been involved in it yet. People's imagination is pretty extensive, and when someone's trying to come up with some weird and wonderful place that I can't even imagine, but it's new and it's innovative, and we get the opportunity to work on it, then it'll be the next one.
Okay, the next one. I like that. Next question. If you could go back and do it all over again, is there anything you'd do differently?
Investment banking.
Not wayfinding.
There's not too much. I mean, for me, I think learning about yourself and understanding yourself and what makes you tick, what you're good at, what you struggle with, what triggers you. Going through that earlier would have had more benefit. Learning to, trust the people around you a bit more.
Yeah, Paul?
Mine are more back end type things again. We
don't want to talk about your back end,
no,
Paul.
I know, but we used to create our own databases and systems for managing assets and signed families and projects. We could have done that as a work stream potentially. You see them now, lots of portals and systems out there which help, particularly for new builds. You develop somewhere, you've got all your assets in there.
Yeah,
it just helps long term with that. But,
that's good.
Decided not to.
One piece of advice, just one, that you give someone starting in their career in wayfinding right now.
Devil's in the detail.
Devil's in the detail, like that. Gideon? You're going to say, don't do it.
Quit now.
No. Come and have a chat.
Okay, fair enough. How do you unwind away from the office?
Struggle with that.
Yeah.
But post-COVID, I do a lot more now than I ever did.
Yeah.
So I
Never at work.
Yeah. So I have a far more bigger social life now than I ever have done.
Yeah.
2 or 3 nights a week I'm cycling, snooker, something else.
Yeah. I'd love a game of snooker. I'd be terrible at it.
Don't worry, Alison, I'm awful. But
I reckon you're a hustler.
But
I reckon you're like
the one thing with your own business though, you can never turn off from it though.
Yeah, of course.
I don't. I tend to do bits on a Saturday and you're always thinking about stuff.
Yeah.
But having a few key things which I try and stick to does make a big difference.
Yeah. Gideon?
What was the question again?
How do you unwind away from the office? Easy for me to say.
Not YouTube videos.
You used to race caterhams, maybe?
Oh, I did a bit of catering racing.
There we go. Okay.
Tinkering.
If you could switch jobs for 1 week with anyone in the industry, who would it be? Obviously, it would be me, but in our
industry.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. I'd really like to spend time in an actual. I'd like to be one of our clients, like an experienced manager or something. Just have the time to watch people and see what they actually do. And I know you do a lot of that, but I don't get to, and see, dealing with the public, what kind of silly things or not that they have to experience. That would be quite fun.
Paul?
Oh, it's difficult, isn't it? I don't know. Maybe be Norman Foster for the day.
That would be amazing. That'd be
Fly
really
around,
cool.
Sprinkle your dust on the few big developments you're interested in. He's obviously partially retired, but obviously not fully. So
that would be brilliant.
How cool would that be?
I think that's great. And then final question. What's your favourite studio party moment? So over the years, there have been quite a few parties.
If you can remember it weren't good enough. No, is that the same?
Yeah. If you can remember it wasn't good enough, yeah.
We've had some. We always go quite large on Christmas.
Yeah.
Historically, when we're juvenile.
Yeah.
And there's people ending up in cells and
what's his name? Forgotten his name now.
There's all sorts of silly things. It was good. It was good going to Dubai recently. They moved into a new office. They always do it quite nicely out there. We always go for a big dinner. It's always warm. It's always very civil. It's culturally, a bit more kind of mature in that respect. Whereas celebrations over here tend to end up in a pub and people quite messy. But they're still good fun.
Yeah.
And obviously we've not talked a lot about Singapore, but they celebrated their second birthday recently, which is quite good.
Yeah. Paul, favourite?
I couldn't tell you, Alison. There's too many of them. No. There's been some great Christmas do's in the past.
Yeah.
We had that one.
Because your memory's going.
Yeah, absolutely. That one event where it snowed, didn't it?
Oh, gosh, yeah.
So we had,
that was really memorable, yeah.
So we had a band, we had beers in, we invited loads of people. deep
It was
freeze
an
that day.
opening party at
that
the
was it.
office.
Yeah.
When we
Hollywood Street.
moved from our funny little office to, I said there was that moment where we signed a lease and blah blah blah, and it's like, oh, we'll have a party, but it was in December, wasn't it? I think before
And then it
Christmas.
snowed heavily that night, so most people couldn't come.
They closed London
Half the
Bridge,
tube stations
next
shut.
door to London Bridge.
Yeah.
So we had all these ice sculptures, but it was still, I think probably 2/3 of the people still turned up.
Yeah.
Still drank all the beer.
We still ran out of booze. We had a band on. My old boss, who set up his own company, was dancing. That was quite a fun
good.
evening.
Yeah.
Mums and dads were there
Yeah.
because we were still quite young then. So that was pretty good.
Yeah, good.
The way you said it made it sound like you were 16 and your mum and dad had to take you to the party.
It kind of felt a bit like that. Yeah. We had balloons,
We had balloons and passed the parcel.
Not quite.
musical chairs.
Jelly and ice cream.
Yeah, no, that was quite good.
Brill. Well, that's it. Thank you very much. We have officially run out of time because we need to get Paul on the train.
Brilliant.
So thank
good,
you so
Alison.
much for talking to me. And
Some great questions.
good. I'm glad. We didn't get through half of them either. There were a load more I could have asked.
Part 2.
We could do a
We
part
could
two.
have a
Shut
part
up.
deux.
We'll do it in 50-year celebration.
I won't be here. I probably won't be on the planet in another 25 years. But
Oh, that's
yeah.
a nice way to end.
Yes, I won't be on the planet for the next 25th. So yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks both.